The Her Sports Show, live every Wednesday on YouTube and every podcast app.
Hello and welcome to the Her Sports Show, our series bringing you the latest and breaking news in the world of women's sport. In today's episode, we discuss Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano, the fight potentially off the cards, Stephanie Meadow talking about the US Open and her LPGA season, the role media and sponsors play in promoting women's sport, and we have a competition this week. Be in with a chance to win a Huawei Watch GT Runner. All you have to do to be in with a chance to win is comment your favourite athlete below. Welcome to the show, Cliona. It's great to have you on.
Hi, Niamh. How are you?
Good, thank you. There's a lot in terms of the world of women's sport. We have on the front of the Irish Daily Mirror, Katie's Croker fight KO'd as the Puerto Rican boxer doesn't want to go to Ireland this autumn, says promoter. So we had expected a fight, or we had hoped for a fight in Croke Park anyway, but from the news here it says Katie Taylor's dream of a Croke Park homecoming rematch against Amanda Serrano is over for now after talks broke down. The Brave Boxing Heroes promoter Eddie Hearn has revealed the challengers camp have no interest in a headline event at GAA HQ this year. The Matchroom boss said they don't want that fight, unfortunately. They don't want to go to Ireland. They don't really want a rematch this year. It was kind of like, regardless of the offer, we don't want to do the rematch. So something we had all hoped for, I think, but doesn't look like it's on the cards. What did you think?
Yeah, look, it's a strange one. First of all, like I never take boxing promoters at face value, but they does seem to be clear. I think Serrano had tweeted recently that she was going to fight on a Jake Paul undercard in America in August. And I always, there has been questions ever since this was mentioned. Obviously, they'd love a rematch. Katie said it straight after. Huge money fight. I think Katie's reporters have made 2 million and Serrano 1 million. So, you can understand why you might want to take a little break there and not have to go in with your hardest opponent that you've ever faced in her case. And I think the big issue is the Puerto Rican. Like anyone who was there, I think you were there, Niamh, were you?
Yeah.
The Puerto Ricans are just, they're just amazing boxing fans. They're, the Hispanics and the Irish, both boxing people, and there was an amazing atmosphere at that fight, and everybody said how well they got on together. But the problem is you're trying to replicate getting Puerto Ricans to Dublin in September, and I think that's probably the issue. And it seemed to me more likely that if you got that fight to go to Puerto Rico, you're going to attract a huge crowd to it. And then you have weather issues in Ireland and all the rest. And Katie was seen, actually, wasn't she, in over in LA afterwards, subsequently had a fight, and everyone was going, oh, maybe LA would be the place to take her next. So I don't know. It's really interesting. First of all, they're saying definitely won't happen this September. All we can hope for is, and everybody is desperate. I mean, it is to use the wrong word in this case, but it is really criminal that we haven't seen her fighting ever professionally in Ireland. I saw her win a gold medal in the Excel Arena. You saw her in Madison Square Garden recently. There is an issue you were saying earlier too about the size of the crowd, what you could be expecting in Croke Park, because there were Madison Square Garden's only about 20,000.
Yeah, it's 19,000, maybe 400 and something. But look, the fight there, the atmosphere is brilliant, and I think it was about 15,000 tickets they had sold by the Thursday, so they sold about 4,000 in the last 2 days.
Yeah.
Obviously a capacity of 82,000. There's kind of debate over whether it could be a filled stadium, but certainly she's huge Irish fans here, and I think a lot of people would come out to see her fight because it would possibly be one of her last fights. So I think it's something that people would come to see, and it's obviously a history-making event to have her here.
Yeah, and some
of the greats have fought in Croke Park.
Yeah, but it's an anniversary, isn't it, of Muhammad Ali playing, fighting Blue Lewis in Croke Park. And look, I don't doubt there's a massive Irish audience for her. I think the issue will be, or you could get a big audience in from Britain as well for her as well.
Yeah.
She was, she is the top of the top. Everybody recognises she's a global superstar. But everybody would just love it. If we just want to see her fight in Ireland, that I think before she ends her career. And at 36, we're all I think a lot of people are hoping that she has made her money and will get out of what is a tough game. And she took a lot of, how she was still standing after that 5th and 6th round in Madison Garden was extraordinary. I've never seen anything like it. So hopefully it'll happen, but definitely not this year. It looks like definitely from the papers today, Niamh.
Do you think it's the right decision for Katie in terms of, like, we're obviously talking about the age that she is at 36 now, and that's 21 professional wins that she's had. Like, is a rematch against Serrano, if it doesn't happen this year, as she continues on in her career, is it the right move for Katie, or, you know, is it a good shout for her to maybe retire with an unbeaten streak?
That is all the stuff that's up for debate, isn't it? Because what Serrano has is a big punch. Katie doesn't have a big punch, and that's what she got hit with the last day. But her resilience is extraordinary, and her age. Do you know what? Her age doesn't matter. I've been to where she trains in America. Was lucky enough to be there a couple of years ago just to see how Spartan it is. What a Spartan lifestyle she lives. This woman is totally dedicated, and there's really, boxing is everything to her. So it's not like, I don't think she, you know, I think nobody will tell her when it's time to stop, and nobody should tell her when it's time to stop, because what she's done for the game and the sport and for Ireland is just without question. So I think she'll call time when she wants to call time. What I'd love to see is that she makes, you know, as much money as she can, because she deserves every single penny of it, and then gets out on her own terms, whatever they are.
Yeah, no, the resilience is definitely, I think, what held her in that match the last time. Like, you could, and that's what a lot of people expected, was that Serrano was going to come out and it was going to be the first couple of rounds where she was going to do the damage. But you could see that fifth and sixth round that you're talking about, that's really, it took a lot out of Serrano as well, because the next couple of rounds after that, she was very tired, and the fact that Katie managed to hang in, that's really how she managed to pull it off in the end. But look, it'd be really exciting to see something here for her, and I know Eddie Hearn has spoken about wanting to get Katie to fight in Ireland, you know, before she does retire. In the Irish Independent, they also mentioned the story, and they said that mixed martial arts star and former World Pro Boxing champion Holly Holm has been touted as a possible replacement for Serrano. So we might actually see, whether it's in Dublin or whether it's somewhere else, they're looking at other options for Katie to fight this year.
Yeah, but Holly Holm has, you know, started in boxing, went into MMA, you know, has gone down. She's not fighting at the level she was fighting at. I couldn't see her actually being able for, you know, she was a big money fight for her. I just couldn't see her giving the sort of competition that Serrano gave. Like, that was an amazing fight, recognized as one of the greatest fights, you know, Ring Magazine, one of the greatest fights in the history of boxing on the front cover, they said. So, you know, I think Katie as well, you know, wants these fights, you know, they are the fight. You get the opinion that she just loves proving herself on the big day, and she wants to just destroy everybody who's ever doubted her. And Serrano was one of those who kept niggling away at her, you know what I mean? Nobody got it on, you know. But it was an extraordinary. I have rarely seen such resilience. I've never ever seen anything like it. She was just unbelievable.
Yeah, no, look, she does want to fight the best, and, you know, people had asked her about, you know, was she less motivated for some other fights that she had come up, other opponents she had come up against, because I guess she probably felt that she was well able to take them, where with Serrano, you know, she knew that she was a really good fighter, and the respect between the two of them was huge. You know, and also I thought Serrano was very eloquent, and
amazing
in terms of the conversation. Like, she really valued what they had collectively done for women's sport, and the, you know, the path that they're paving, and the, you know, the future for boxing, women's boxing, and all that. So it was really enjoyable thing to be at the press conferences and stuff, and see the respect between the two of them.
Even in the ring at the end, Serrano was, as you said, extraordinarily eloquent after, and it's always amazing how eloquent boxers are after they've been beating the head off each other. But she was remarkably eloquent and respectful, and said, look, this is what we're doing here for women's sport is phenomenal, you know. And I, you know, I mean, Taylor really wanted to fight her, and that's what I think. I don't think she's interested in fighting Patsy's anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
I think she's interested now in leaving her legacy. And if there's one big fight that she wants to go for again, and it looks like it would be Serrano, because she's the one who came closest to taking her out.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess we'll move on from the boxing now. We could stay on this topic all day, I think, but sure, we'll keep an eye on it over the next couple of weeks and months. But also in the Irish Independent, it's up for debate whether Raducanu will be competing in Wimbledon. So it says that Raducanu is in doubt for Wimbledon after a strain. The US Open champion Emma Raducanu has no idea if she'll be fit to play at Wimbledon after the 19-year-old was forced to retire from her opening match in the WTA 250 event in Nottingham after a freak injury yesterday. So this is after we're hearing that she might be pairing up with Andy Murray, and people seem to get very excited about that yesterday. And now, you know, we're seeing that she's had an issue, and I believe this is the third time that she's pulled out since winning last year's US Open final, with being barely on the court for half an hour on this occasion.
Yeah, that was the worrying thing, was that it was so quick. And she pulled out the Italian Open as well, but she said straight away that it wasn't the same injury, and she described it as a freak injury. But that's the worry, that it would happen so quick. Look, I feel I'm in two minds about Raducanu in terms of, I just feel the pressure on her is immense, and the Wimbledon thing is immense as well. You know what I mean? That she first really came to light last year when she made the last 16 in Wimbledon. That was a big thing, and she actually then had to pull out with injury. She's only 19, and it seems to me that, again, when you're at this level in tennis, the physical demands on you are extreme, and her body is still adjusting to that. And she's changed coaches, and that's the one thing I worry about her, is her dad coached her for a long time, and apparently I mean, I think she's been through 4 coaches in the past year, and that's the worry for me. And she was with this guy called Torben Belts for 5 months, and they seemed to get on really well. And then he was gone. And at the moment, I think she sort of seems to be working with somebody from the Ladies Tennis Association. So to me, that's maybe a worry, is that apart from because I think a high quality coach is somebody who's over all that kind of stuff, body maintenance, injuries, resilience, a huge word, we've used it a few times today. And in young athletes, resilience is so, so important. Not to mention the extraordinary sort of psychological pressure that she's on since she won the US Open at such a young age, you know, and Wimbledon, apart from the Queen's anniversary, Wimbledon will be, will be the next big thing in Britain. So the minute a female tennis player or male tennis player in England looks as if they could have star quality, they're all over them like a rash. Yeah. So it's a tough time for her. And you know what? If she missed Wimbledon this year, it might be the best thing ever that happened to her. You know, take some time off, figure out what's happening with her coaching wise, get her body fixed. You don't want to be breaking down, I don't think, Niamh, repeatedly as a 19-year-old.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. Like, it's extraordinary that someone at such a young age is having, so many injuries, and maybe she does need to take that time to get the recovery right. And, she'll be right in the eye of, everybody when she's competing at Wimbledon. But also in terms of that changing coaches, like, you have to work, build a relationship. Like, 4 in 1 year is huge, and they have to get to know her. They have to get to know her body and what she can take and what she can't take. And then, as you said, that psychological side of things, like, you have to build that trust in the relationship, and a lot of chopping and changing is very tough for any athlete, not to mind somebody that has, jumped forward in such a quick amount of time. I
like the fact, Niamh, that Murray, obviously, and look at Murray is an extraordinary, ally for female players and female sport, and his mum Judy is an unbelievable person. I've heard her speaking at conferences. She's just a fantastic woman who cares about all athletes, not just her own sons. And particularly she's been very innovative in some programs she's had for women's and girls tennis in England. So I like the fact that they're in her corner. They're there. They're rooting for her. They will give her every help they can. And that's good to see. It's good to see Murray coming out and supporting her. And also they know what it's like when you're an underage talent, and everybody in Britain is hoping you're the next big thing in tennis, But what she did in the US Open, I think she was the first qualifier to win a Grand Slam event ever, and like, that was an extraordinary thing she did. And sometimes, physically and psychologically, that is such a big burden, So I think for me, I think the key thing for her is to find a coach that she's happy with, And also in tennis, you have families very, very closely involved, so the coaches everybody has to work together really well, and it all has to work in sync. And it looks to me like that's the challenge there for her, as well as getting the body right. And a coach, again, is going to influence who's dealing with their S&C, who's doing her recoveries, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I had spoken to Molly Scott maybe 2 years ago, and we had talked about kind of the volume of training and kind of pressure on teenagers, and Raducanu still is a teenager, and the growth that you're still going through at that time, that as you kind of age and mature and kind of finish growing probably, and you know, that your body can handle more and you can build up these sessions. So Molly had said when she was in secondary school that she struggled hugely with volume, and her body wasn't able to handle it, but it was something that they built on year after year. And now that she's in her 20s, she's able to handle higher volume. So it's something that, you know, for the likes of someone who's 19, they're still, their body is still adjusting to their growing and the training that they're doing and what they can take. So maybe in 2, 3, 4 years time, like Raducanu will see less injuries, you know, provided that she monitors what's happening at the moment, because obviously
they could have, you see, because she was a schoolgirl. She was very much a schoolgirl until then, and now she's full time, I think. So and as you say, and our athletes will tell you this, and I've just been interviewing Kate Karen, who's working with the USA women's under-17 soccer team, and loading, you know, the load that you put on young bodies is a huge thing. So Raducanu could have upped her volume greatly. We don't know what she's done, but maybe that's what's triggering stuff now, and it takes time to sort all those little, I mean, athletes' bodies, I always say, are like a finely tuned machine, and something can go wrong so easily with them, and then they're playing catch up because they're trying to compete and get into tournaments, and everything starts to, you know, so let's hope she gets healthy first.
No, there's a huge amount of balance, particularly from the female perspective, you know, in terms of learning about your body, understanding it, and it's a fine line between, you know, managing the nutrition and rest and recovery, as well as obviously the training as well. But she was speaking with BBC Breakfast and said that we haven't actually spoken about it, but it's something we feel we both want to do. When she was beginning the Wimbledon preparation, this is around a potential partnership with Murray. She said, I'm not sure if this is going to happen this year, but hopefully it will. And then last May, Murray had expressed his own interest in partnering with Emma, stating, actually last year we were maybe going to do it, but we both ended up doing well in the singles. I'd love to play alongside Emma at some stage. Whether that is something that works this year or not, I don't know. I'm sure both of our focuses will be on having good runs at the singles, but I'd love to do that. So it sounds like something that's definitely, you know, on the table, up for discussion. And I think a lot of people would enjoy to see them playing together. And as you said, he's been an outspoken male ally for women in sport. You know, he's not afraid to correct people. No. You know, if they're making mistakes around some of the facts that they're putting out there. But yeah, no, it would be a really great pairing. And, you know, as you said, that kind of age and experience with Murray could be something that would rub off well for Raducanu.
Yeah, and I think as well, having a bit of crack, you know what I mean? Athletes, professional athletes work so hard, and mixed tennis is an opportunity very often for them to have a bit of fun as well. And you can see how much they love it. Even you can see the Williams sisters love playing mixed. We've seen loads of players over the years, mixed, you know, women's pairs and mixed pairs. They just love it because it's fun as well. There's not so much pressure on you. And again, that might just be something, you know, I think that often is something that can just help athletes to get out of, you know, to get out of a slump when they're struggling a bit.
Yeah, no, look, we hope that we'll see her in good health anyway. And again, another thing to keep an eye on, whether we'll see that Raducanu and Murray pairing. You're watching the Her Sport Show, and I'm joined by Cliona Foley as we discuss the latest headlines today. Earlier, I sat down with Mona McSharry and Ellen Walshe to discuss life in college in America, going to the Tokyo Olympic Games, and becoming World Championship medalists.
I think as an athlete, whatever competition you compete at or goal you achieve, you're constantly on to the next goal. There's very rarely a moment where you like celebrate for too long, because you're like, okay, well, I've got this now, and what's next? And so I think, you know, getting there, it was amazing. And now we're thinking about what's next and how can we improve on that performance. So yeah, I'm definitely excited for the next couple of years.
I hope, Ellen, that you both celebrated at the World Championships and took that time to take it all in. There was lots of great pictures of the two of you in video, like celebrating together. How proud are you of yourselves, but also of each other in, you know, you guys made history in getting those 2 medals at the World Championships?
I think for me, I find it hard to say I'm proud of myself. Like, yeah, it was a big goal and I achieved it, but as Mona said, like, I'm hungry for more. I'm not done yet. And kind of same with the Olympics, I finished and I just wasn't satisfied. So I remember talking to Mona in September in Max the Mini, Mona's little car, and we were kind of being like, we're so excited to go to World Short Course. And I think both of us were just hungry for more, ready to get up and just go again with no fear. So that's what we did, and we came home with 2 medals. I can't remember. Did you get one? Okay, I can't remember, sorry. But yeah.
Well, there's videos of you hugging and everything and all that celebration, so don't worry, we can send that on to you after.
I didn't know if you got 1 or 2. I honestly, it was so long ago.
No, it's great to hear that there's like consistent drive, like for wanting more, and obviously getting to compete at the Olympics, and you're wanting to keep pushing to get better and better every time, which is really exciting to hear. You're at the top of Irish swimming, so like you're role models for so many people. Like Mona, what's it like to get all that support and the fandom kind of after the Olympics? Like you made it to a final and then a medal at the World Short Course shortly after.
I think it's really just heartwarming to have that support, and I guess I knew of it, but I didn't really realize until I went to the Olympics and kind of seen how many people that were watching and I guess cheering me on who didn't even really know me and I'd never met. And I think just being able to like have that opportunity to inspire younger women as well and try and show them where they can go with sport, I think is just it's a great plus of being an athlete, and I really enjoy that aspect.
In terms of being in the University of Tennessee, Ellen, like what's it like competing over there and like looking at the facilities from scenes and like the stories and everything? It looks like these great facilities and then also great camaraderie between the team.
Yeah, it was definitely a bit of getting used to, like the dual meets have really helped me progress being more of a competitor than I ever will be. I think you just got to get up and go. You can't have too much fear. It's just like you're in this race, like, and it's just go. And then a swim down, and then you're straight back cheering. Like there's no resting time. There's no sit back and relax. You're just so invested in each other. It's definitely a different culture than I would ever experience at home. So yeah.
In terms of like you guys would have been training alongside boys growing up, is that the same situation over there, or do you just train as part of a women's squad?
It's mixed. The first year I came here, we were still separate, so we didn't really train with the men. But then at the end of last year, so just before Ellen came, we actually rejoined, and we're now together most of the time. We definitely do a couple of practices where it's just the women and just the men because they see that we need different things at times, but we also come together and do group practices. So I think we're getting the best of both worlds because we have those practices where it's just women and we can kind of push each other on. And then you also have practices where it's the whole team together, and that's really nice too. And you can kind of just really feel the energy from everyone.
Yeah, no, I know like you've obviously been training with guys since you have been growing up, and there's you're obviously going out there and competing against them too all the time. Like as a competitor, you always want to win no matter who you're racing. What are the kind of benefits that you're talking about in terms of training as the women's squad? And it's great that there's so many women, because I know in Ireland at say the age that you both are, it can be scarce that you have that volume of female athletes training together.
Yeah, it definitely blows my mind the amount of women we have here. Like we don't even have that many women that age at home swimming, never mind in one place in the States. So it's a super competitive bunch of girls, and we're also close in terms of times. Like there's not much between any of us, so I'd say it's hard enough for the coaches to make a team to put together and be like, this is the team. So because everyone is just super competitive and driven each day of the week. So yeah, it's really nice to be a part of it.
Yeah, no, it definitely sounds like a really great thing to be a part of. Thanks so much for taking the time to chat to us on Her Life, Her Style, Her Sport. It's great to hear both getting on so well, and we can't wait to see you racing over the next couple of weeks and months. Welcome back. A quick reminder that you're watching the Her Sport Show, Ireland's #1 source for news and entertainment on women's sport. I'm here with Cliona Foley. In the Irish Times, there were no women's sports stories today, so this is something that comes up on Twitter an awful lot. What are your kind of thoughts on the landscape of women's sport, I suppose, at the moment when it comes to print media?
They're still struggling to get their rightful. I think they're still struggling to get enough space in it. It's really interesting. BBC have just had a report out today on the Women's Super League in England and how they've actually quadrupled the viewing figureships in the last year, and I think that's large. I think they've gone from 8 million to 34 million viewers in the Women's Super League in the last year. And part of that, Niamh, is because the BBC are now sharing the rights with Sky, and that, in other words, it's on free to air. And there's more of it as well. They are showing more of it, and I think we still need to see more visibility in traditional media. You know. And I struggle, you know, there's loads of progress has been made over the years, but I still struggle when I see how little female athletes we see in the newspapers. You know, it's a space thing. They sometimes put it on more stuff online than they do in the actual papers, and that's where, you know, there has been improvements, but it's still just not enough. But then I suppose you look at it and say, well, what was on this week, and what was on that, you know, like I do think whenever women do well now, you see it in media, which wasn't the case before. For many years you didn't even see it. There wasn't that visibility there. There is now, but I think on a regular basis, it still disappoints me when I see, you know, we'll see pages and pages, you know, in the coming weekends on men's GAA, men's Gaelic, and yet you'll always, you know, the women's will be shrunk down into the corner somewhere, you know, unless it's super duper, you know, the absolute two top teams in their leagues. So that has still to change. But I do come back to the old argument, which is, you know, are the stories attracting clicks on websites? Because that's how they're measured now. You know, papers and all media now are measuring who's interested in this, and they can measure it online. And if they measure it online and they say, well, there's not enough people clicking on that, or reading us or writing to us and saying, why aren't you covering that? Well, then they say, well, there's more, you know, we'll get more from covering the big men's sports. That's how it works. And unfortunately, it still works. So I always say we still need to increase the sizes going to or looking at now websites and streaming. And then that is an argument that can be used when you go back to newspapers to say, sorry, there is a huge audience for women's sport, or there is an increased audience for women's sport. It's bigger than you thought. And that BBC stuff, people can have a look at it today. It's just come out, that research. And they're saying, look, it shows that if you show it, and if it's available, particularly, you know, widely available, and you show it, people are starting to, one of the things they found was the repeat audience. So they found that I think the repeat viewership had gone up by 20% in the past year of Women's Super League. In other words, people are watching it and are liking it, and they're going back. And that's real progress.
No, I think, look, we obviously understand the business of sport and the business of media, and you know, obviously it is something to be considered, but you know, sometimes organizations need to be taking the time and you know, kind of trusting the process. Like, you have to take a couple of years to invest in developing you know, loyalty from an audience, educating them about the product, getting them to buy into it. And you know what we see a lot, and what we've heard a lot is around you know, people don't know some of the female athletes, they don't know the stories, they don't know the teams, and when they begin to get to know them, that's when they really start to tune in, and you know, the audience starts to grow. It is something that's going to take a bit of time, but you know, when it does come to you know, the bottom line, that can be the difficulty. Is that enough of an excuse? You know, given that, like, I know you're talking about like clicks and views and that type of thing, but do we owe our women in sport this coverage now? Because, you know, obviously from societal conditioning, I know this is tough for a morning, but you know, from societal conditioning and you know, history, like we've women's place in society has shifted over the years. We are going in the right direction, but we've always put men's sport out there, and is it time for women to be getting more recognition, and for the bottom line to be, you know.
Yeah, look at the Katie Taylor example, right? Okay, you know, the reality is sport is business. You know, it's an entertainment business now, and it is. There's an element of coverage of sport, you know, from somebody like RTE, who's a national broadcaster, who owes it, you know, who has a national broadcasting a remit to serve the public audience. But most media are companies looking to make money, and they see it very unsentimentally if they just say what will make us the biggest amount of money. And that's why I think that as fans and supporters of women's sport, we need to get out there, get on the ground, show them that there's a big audience, get online, send the messages, you know, and that's what will prepare them most. You can make the ethical argument, but the ethical argument actually won't ever wash with commercial people. You know, one of the ethical audiences, the ethical argument I will make is, I think sponsors owe it. I think sponsors, women buy products all the time. They're the biggest consumer of domestic, you know, they're the ones who make the decisions about so much in households as consumers. That's why I'm really heartened when I see big sponsors come into women's sport, because they influence the media. And Barclays have done a huge deal, the biggest ever deal with the Women's Super League in England. And I think it's the pressure from them as well has increased the TV coverage. You know, you will always have the argument in print that we don't have the space. But if you can persuade TV to show it, and they're tight for space as well, well then, you know, and I think sponsors are people who are really influencing things. And that's where I think society has changed. And I think, you know, sponsors and companies now realize society has changed. They're now starting to invest in women's sport. And I think that they are the people who will probably have to put most pressure on media outlets. And also we have a duty to be out there putting pressure on. Well, whether that's paying through the gate and making sure there's more people at, you know, the women's national league games or camogie or football or whatever it is, you know, I think that's where we can all play a part. But it's an ethical argument. And I suppose I'm working in sports so long that I know there's very little ethics in sports. It's about money.
And that is like, you know, people have to, you know, understand that angle of it as well. And, you know, to keep businesses running, obviously you need the papers to be bought and the clicks to happen. But interesting about the sponsorship side of things, I actually saw Gatorade are moving away from men's sport, and they're actually investing in women's sport over in the US now. So that'd be interesting to see how that goes. That's a big move from a big organization.
Yeah, and really interesting, if you listen to sponsors, Niamh, over the last few years as well, you know, there's a big discussion about is the audience for women's sport, and we're mostly talking about women's team sport here, I think, because there isn't a huge difference in individual sports in the way they're covered. Katie Taylor's classic example. She always gets the coverage that she deserves, and athletes do as well, track athletes. But there is an argument over, is it a different kind of an audience? Is that audience more appealing to certain brands? You know, even what we've seen happening, we'll say in British soccer, and some of the violence that's associated with some of the, you know, the way things are going in British soccer at the moment, and the way violence has come back in on the terraces. Companies possibly now will say, hold on, is there a healthier, is there a product here that we would prefer to invest our money in, because their values seem to be different. And there's a great debate. And it's not a debate that's finished, and there's no right and wrongs in it, but there is a really interesting debate, and I keep hearing it, and it's really heartening to see, as you say, a big company like that saying, actually, no, we're going to go this way because there's something about that sport that we like, that we feel is more wholesome and may appeal to an audience that we want to attract. So that's really fascinating stuff. And it is the future. I think it really is the future. And Barclays, you know, said that when they took on that big sponsorship, they said, they're really interested in, and even, you know, the thing that we often talk about as well, you know, how women after sport matches stay and spend time, like the women's Irish women's soccer team, spend time with the fans, get to know the kids. All of that is waking people up to saying, oh, it's slightly different, and we like it, and we'll invest in it because it's different, and because we like the values that it's showing.
Yeah, no, the atmosphere, like I find at any of the women's games is always really just like friendly, and like a really good atmosphere. Like people just, the fans and the athletes are usually engaging. Obviously there's a little different there with COVID, but there's a huge amount of like love and friendship between the fans of the teams, which is really nice to see. And
and
young fans out there, which is really cool. Like I was at some of the Irish games, and you know, all the young boys and girls that are there to see them play is great. And I know Katie McCabe was giving people boots and all that kind of thing. That was, you know, inspiring people for the next
and when you're trying to grow an audience, that's really important.
Yeah.
You know, when they're trying to grow that audience, and it's just as important that little boys are there as little girls are there, because
Absolutely.
that's growing future fans for it. I used to see it. I used to be a track and field correspondent and went around the world. And when you go to European Championships and World Championships, you see them. They do little mini athletics, you know, outside the grounds where the kids can throw sponge balls and sponge javelins. It didn't matter what gender or age, let them all have a go. And it's that, you know, they're trying to appeal to a very broad audience and bring families to their sports, and it works really well, and it brings kids into the sport as well. And I think that's how all of that interaction with fans helps as well. It inspires people to bring their kids to those sports, try out those sports and stay in those sports, and build a loyalty to a player or a team or whoever it is.
Absolutely. In terms of some other news that we have here, almost a third of the UK population has watched women's sport in 2022, with 21.1 million viewers from the 1st of January to the 15th of May, up from 8.8 million at the equivalent stage of last year. That's from the same BBC article. So yeah, it really is showing that there is a demand and there is a want for women's sport.
Yeah, and I mean, it's really interesting as well. I mean, there's a very good reason for Barclays, of course, investing in women's football, and the BBC getting so involved in it as well. And that is, the Euros are on in England next month, and Women's European Championships. So like, there's going to be a lot of soccer on TV, women's soccer on TV this summer. And incidentally, I bought tickets for a semi-final a few days ago, £15 sterling. That's an absolute bargain if somebody wants to get online and go over and go. Because I say, like, when is there going to be a European Championship so close to us?
That's unbelievable.
But the tickets are fantastic. In fact, I have a big argument about we should be charging more, but the terrace tickets are €15 for some of those games, and most of those games. So you might, if you're interested in going over to watch, because these are the best, and some of the best soccer players in the world are playing in Europe. The Germans, the French, the Dutch, the Norwegians. Hegerberg is back for Norway, sensational, playing Northern Ireland, won in the first round, and they're in the same group as England. So like, it's an amazing tournament. So I think you know, there's also really strategic reasons why people get involved, but it's brilliant to see it paying off. And I think that's, there's going to be a legacy, I think, and I think that legacy is already being seen in the Super League, and that's going to feed into the Euros, and then hopefully that'll feed on. And cricket in England, what they've been doing with it, and netball, what's happening in England as well at the moment, like it's much more visible on television, and that is it's definitely having people are seeing them and want to see them. I was listening to that seminar this morning when they put back-to-backs on, we'll say a women's game after a men's game. They were saying the ratings are high for about the first 10 minutes, and then they start to drop. So in other words, people stay on to watch the women's game but may leave it. But they said, what's really interesting, they said, is if you show two women's games back to back, like a rugby international and a soccer match, there's a much bigger holding attention, and they stay on. So that one I thought was interesting as well. Double headers, female double headers, a female back-to-back actually works better, they were saying, and that's just the way it is at the moment. But they're doing more research, and there's constant research coming up, which is great as well.
Interesting, yeah. No, that is interesting, because obviously, you know, in sports like athletics and swimming and gymnastics, you know, female and male competition is intertwined, and it's a little more challenging when you have some of these pitch sports, because of the length of the games. To try and hold people's attention to go for two games. Like, obviously it's a long day, but it's something that, you know, we would all love to see, you know, male and female double headers, that people are keen to go to both, and that people stay and watch both. But interesting, obviously, that you know, something like rugby and football, that you know, people are keen to watch both. If
there were two women's games back to back. And one of the other things they were saying is, like with cricket, and sometimes they show double headers in England, which is such a big sport, be like our hurling, I suppose. They were saying the men's is usually in the evening at night, which is the prime time for viewing. But in Lancashire recently, there was a double header, and they gave the women the second slot. They gave the women the evening slot, and it did brilliantly. So, you know, people can make strategic decisions as well to help women's sport, and that we're starting to see that.
Yeah. Also, I was speaking to somebody a couple of months ago, and they were talking about listing, some events with the women's stuff leading, with the women's events leading the men's, because people will read it that way. So then you're actually educating them on what's happening on the women's side of things, and then leading into men. So it's just the way we read, obviously, from top to bottom.
And it creates a subconscious bias for some people, you see, because that's how they always see results presented. Men's first, women's second.
It's unfortunate that M comes in the alphabet ahead of W, because if it's alphabetically organized, it's a shame it's not female and male, because then we could alphabetically organize it, and nobody could dispute it. But
there's a GA club in Dublin, Ballantyre St. John's, and they changed their name. They were originally St. John's, a mixed GA club, and I remember years ago they changed the name to Ballantyre St. John's because the Evening Herald used to give results alphabetically, and it put them up higher in the results. There you go. If only we could change the name, it would be great.
There's some more news in football. So Germany, Belgium, and Spain men's national team are going to wear the women's national team kit in their clashes in the Nations League to show support and solidarity ahead of the European Championships this summer. So Adidas, who are the main supplier to these teams, have pushed the campaign. So it's something that we've seen something similar happen before, but an interesting strategy where the men's teams are showing that alliance with the women's teams.
Yeah, and didn't we see in the past week as well the Canadian men's soccer team saying that they went on strike. They didn't play a match last weekend because they're arguing over terms and conditions, really, I suppose, of payment. But they also included that they wanted their women's conditions for their women's to improve and to be there to be more equity. And so that's an interesting thing. It's all about this male allyship. I think men have more power in a lot of places, including team sports, and if they will stand up for the women, their female colleagues in this respect, well, then it's very often very, very powerful. But interesting, didn't you say it there? Adidas are the sponsors, and Adidas are the ones who are pushing this campaign, and that's why I think sponsors are so invaluable as well. Yeah. But we had that, and remember we had the Irish men's team have taken a cut in their international payment so that the women could finally get a decent international payment as well. I think that's the case in last year or something. So we need that. I'm always amazed, when I don't see more allyship really between international colleagues, of either gender, but it's happening, and sponsors again can influence it. I think that's really important, but I think players themselves can stand up and speak out as well, and it's great to see that. And I think it happened in Norway, Denmark and Norway. I think the Scandinavian countries as well. There were issues where the men's side said, we'll take a cut in our international fee. We want the money to go. We want the women to get more money for their international fee as well. So it's happening all the time.
Yeah, no, I think certainly the generation that we have at the moment, like typically any, boys or young men that we speak to are very open, to supporting women in sport and have been brought up typically to, believe in a equal society and that. So we do need more people to talk about it and stand up for it and to try and get equal treatment for, as you said, their female counterparts. But, they can have huge power, and we're in a situation where more often than not, male athletes are known, more well known than female athletes. So they do have that power because they connect to a larger audience. So yeah, there's huge work that can be done.
The NBA, the WNBA and the NBA, it's really interesting to see the NBA in America. American professional basketball players have really started to tune in. The late Kobe Bryant obviously was a brilliant ally, but they've actually started to tune in very much to the WNBA, and there's been a really interesting response to that. And they've already seen that I mean, apart from a lot of other things, there are other reasons why their viewership, there's more visibility, there's more coverage. But I think that because they just have such huge numbers of fans and people relating to them, that when they see an NBA player, saying that a female NBA player is the GOAT in her game, well, then they go, okay, who is she? And they go and check it out. And, that really seems to have been having an effect. The WNBA is really interested in that effect at the moment.
In some kind of football and basketball combined news, did you see the story about Trinity Rodman?
I did, yeah. There's a coincidence. Yeah. Trinity Rodman. I would have seen her dad play. Dennis Rodman, notorious as the only brilliant basketball player, by the way, but an absolute looper.
I think that's everybody's verdict.
Who's had a very colourful career, but his daughter Trinity is a very, very talented. Very talented footballer. She got herself in trouble recently, didn't she?
Yeah. So I think there's kind of a misunderstanding in something that she said, and she was talking about paving the way for the future generation, and I think she worded it and said that they were now getting what the players before them should have gotten, and I just think the way that she phrased it was not exactly what she meant. But going back to that pressure, she put out a message apologizing for it, saying, I am only 20 years old and it was misinterpreted. And I think that kind of goes back a little bit to Emma Raducanu and, the age profile that some of these people are, and, media on them all the time. We have this cancel culture and, people that are trying to, get rid of you if you make one mistake. And I think it was quite mature of her to actually say, like, look, I am only 20. And obviously with a father like Dennis Rodman, like this girl is going to be, in everybody's eye for attention. So huge.
Yeah, and you know what?
Kind of following she has at 20,
Yeah, and what's really interesting about her is exactly if you're the child of a famous sporting parent and you go into that sport, you're immediately right. Everybody's on you, particularly in America, where her dad was an absolute superstar.
Yeah,
even in sport, and then had a lot of notoriety. But really interesting. I thought a couple of things about that. I mean, she has signed she's been the youngest and the most expensive signing in the Women's National League in America. She signed for 1.1 million, and it was in relation to that she was saying, I'm kind of, I've signed this historic deal, and this is what women should have got, and they didn't get it years ago, and they should have. But as you said, she's only 19 or 20, but what's really interesting about her is, apart from her physical talent, she's 5'10", and she's 2-footed. She's an incredibly good player. She was the youngest ever to sign in the American Premier Leagues, but she never went to college. She went straight from high school into professional league. That is unheard of in women's soccer in England, in America, because we know the US collegiate system is such a breeding ground and a nursery. We've had loads of, we still have Irish players there. So she doesn't have, I think, she didn't have that level of education in the college leagues where they teach you what to say and do all the right stuff, because she jumped straight in. And also, I remember Hageberg saying that to me as well, young female athletes don't get the level of training and all this kind of stuff that men do, because their sports are way under-resourced. So she put her foot in it, simply because she's no experience in this, because she's such a precocious talent. She has literally jumped into the big leagues and said the wrong thing. But you're absolutely right. She did the right thing, put her hand up straight away and said, no. It
was just the way that she worded it, like, and it can happen to anybody. And like, I would do things like that too, where you try to explain something and it doesn't come out, you think you've explained yourself properly, but it's misinterpreted. And that's really all that happened. And, obviously people were on it straight away and criticizing her when it was, it seemed like if she had rephrased the sentence, she would have had people understand exactly what she was talking about. But she certainly is somebody that people are going to be looking out for. I think the fact that The Last Dance was on Netflix in the last couple of years, like people are tuning back into kind of the Rodman story. Like, he's obviously no longer playing, but as people begin to learn that his daughter is involved in sport again.
And she gives all the credit to her mum, by the way, Michelle, a woman called Michelle, who is Rodman's third wife. And she's had a very fractured relationship with her dad, but he has been to see her play. She plays at Washington Spirit, and as I say, they all say in America she's going to be the next big thing, and she's been already selected. She's already been in with the American women's senior team. But
I'd say the genes are good.
Yeah, definitely. Well, her dad was extraordinarily talented. He was a brilliant player. All that brilliant.
In other news, Caroline Hanlon had another busy weekend. You mentioned netball earlier, so she became a netball Super League champion with the football championship kicking off this weekend as well. So she's starring with Armagh Ladies Football. She's just been playing 2 elite sports.
It's unbelievable
over and
what
back
she
to
does.
England.
Oh, do you know they Armagh ladies footballers won the Ulster title. They shocked Donegal recently, and the next day she flew to England to win a match for Manchester Thunder, and they went unbeaten this year in the Super League. It's not her first Super League title, but that she's still doing it, still playing for Armagh, still playing every minute with the netball team, and is a doctor, and does all of this at the age of 37. She is one of the greatest athletes this country we've ever had here, and she also is just the best fun. I was talking to brilliant young Armagh footballer, I'm trying to think of her name, the two sisters there that play a few weeks ago, and she was just saying that in training you learn so much from her, because she teaches you all, apart from her skill levels, she teaches you all the tricks that she's picked up over the years. I think she's something ridiculous, like I'm not sure, is it 22 years playing for Armagh, but she's still playing netball at that level, and she'll be playing for Northern Ireland in the Commonwealth Games next month, so it's going to affect how much Armagh get her actually for this summer as well, because she often has international duty, but she's just a phenomenon, absolute phenomenon, wonderful person as well.
Yeah, it sounds like she's someone that's certainly juggling a lot, but still at the top level of...
Amy Mackin, I remembered it. Amy Mackin, as Amy Mackin was saying, what a joy she is to train with and play with.
And you had also Hannah Looney returning from America to play for Cork for the championship, so a big boost for Cork.
It's a massive boost for them, Niamh, the Cork ladies footballers, and if they can get her, the Camogie players, because she plays for both. But they had Cork, who for so long reigned in ladies Gaelic football, they had two all-stars last year, Eric O'Shea and Hannah Looney Tunes, as she calls herself on Instagram, I think. But she went to America to work this year. She's an engineer, so they haven't had her at all. But I think Emma Duffy broke it in the 42 recently. She's coming home, and they're going to have her for the championship. The football team are going to have her. We don't know yet whether she'll be able to do both. I would say maybe, given that she's been away for so long, she might just concentrate on one. That's a massive boost, not in the least because they've lost Eric O'Shea, because she's just gone to sign for an American Aussie Rules team, and she's just such an amazing talent. So to get Hannah Looney back, I think, is really vital for them. Because they're trying to get back up there, and they just need all the best talent that they've got, and she's just an outstanding player.
Yeah, I know, probably good timing, obviously, with the departure of the young talent that is Eric O'Shea. But we're looking forward to what's to come in ladies football this year. I think it'll be exciting for sure. Thank you so much, Cliona, for joining us today to go through all the sporting headlines.
Pleasure.
And now up next, I caught up with LPGA star Stephanie Meadow to catch up on playing the US Open last week, as well as looking back on her 2020 season so far. The 2022 US Women's Open took place last weekend at Pine Needles in South Carolina. Minjee Lee, in a record-breaking performance, claimed her second major championship. I'm delighted to say that I'm now welcoming Irish golfer Stephanie Meadow to the show. Welcome, Stephanie, and thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
You're back in Arizona now after the second major of the year. Can you give us an initial recap on how you feel the week went?
Well, it was a tough week for me personally, but I missed the cut by one, which obviously wasn't the goal. But, overall, just to be a part of something, for the USGA to come up with 10 million purse, to be kind of almost to the guys level pay wise, was just amazing. And I think there was such a buzz, like just around the golf course with fans and players, and it really made a difference. So I think the week in general for me didn't go that well, but for women's golf, it was remarkable.
You had qualified by coming top of your US Open qualifier, 36 holes in one day. How tough was that qualifier?
Yeah, those are rough. I have to say that's probably the one day a year that I don't look forward to. So it was back in, it was in Phoenix. So I was in California, played a practice round there for that event for the week, and then flew back to Phoenix, played 36 holes, and then flew back to California the next day to play the event there. So definitely quite draining mentally and physically. It's hot here, it's over 100 degrees. So yeah, I mean, those days are just so grueling, and it's one of those things where you just have to keep plotting along and hope at the end you've kind of toughed it out more than everybody else has.
Absolutely, it's certainly not an easy gig. So fair play for getting all of that done and for obviously coming top of that qualifier. In terms of Pinehurst, it's a venue that you know well, and you finished previously third in 2014. So I know before last week you were aiming for a higher placing. So as you go to continue the season, what are some things that you will take as learnings from last week?
Yeah, it was honestly quite a big week for me. It was the first week that I kind of struggled ball striking wise kind of all year. And by struggled, I mean like it was bad. So my coach was there and he got to see that kind of live and in action. And sometimes, you know, that makes a big difference. You know, standing on the range at home is one thing, but then, you know, playing under pressure is another. So it was great for him to be able to see that. And we picked up on a few things that we hadn't picked up on before. So I'm going to use those. And some of them are technical. Some of them, you know, are smaller setup things that seem to get off quicker in high pressure situations. So I think, you know, although it was a failure result wise, I think overall I learned a lot of things, and I'm excited to be able to continue that for next week and the rest of the season.
Yeah, it's tough because obviously you came very close to being involved, but in terms of looking forward to what's next, you're currently ranked 66th on the Race to CME Globe with some positive results in there, T10 at JTBC Classic. So how would you rate the season so far? What are some of the proud moments that you have?
Yeah, I think it's been a relatively consistent season so far. Like I've had some, like I haven't had top fives, but I've had a lot of 10 to 30, which is awesome. And, you know, it's the best start that I've gotten off to. It seems like in my career, I've kind of been a slow starter. So it's nice to get the year off better. And I think it just relieves a lot of stress, you know, at this point in the year to kind of be in that position. You know, I can focus more on other things instead of focusing on the worst case scenario. You know, it's definitely a lot better. And it's, you know, I'm proud of myself so far for the year. I think I've gotten better than I was last year. I think I've got a good team around me. I just got a caddy that I've been working with since the start of the year that I really like. Coaching's going well. So overall, I mean, I'm very happy with it so far, but obviously as a competitive athlete, we all want more and we all want the W. And so that's, you know, you're constantly pushing yourself. So even though, you know, I've been reminded certain times throughout this week that I've had a great start so far by my family members, and just to not be so hard on myself for missing one cut. But it's just, that's, you know, I don't know, it's ingrained in our mentality to just keep pushing, and it's never good enough. So, you know, so trying to take in the good parts and keep going and try to do even better things.
Absolutely. That's things we hear from athletes all the time. They're always looking for more, always looking to improve, no matter what the result.
Exactly.
In terms of you know, life on tour and like understanding that. So for people that maybe aren't familiar with golf and you know, think that when you're playing professional golf that it's all, you know, glitz and glamour and great golf courses, could you give us an insight into what a typical tournament week looks like?
Yeah. So I play, you know, mid 20 tournaments a year, 25, maybe a tiny bit more. So when we go to a tournament, we're there for the whole week. We normally fly in on like a Sunday night. We'll play a practice round on Monday and Tuesday. Then a Wednesday is typically a pro-am day with sponsors or clients of the sponsor. And then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday is the 4 rounds of tournaments. You know, I think a lot of people, it's different from other sports where we're totally responsible for ourselves, basically financially organizing everything, you know, flights, where it's not like, you know, certain team sports where you just kind of show up on the bus and off you go. So there's a lot of planning that goes into it. And, you know, although, you know, I mean, the LPGA has made huge strides in the last 8 years since I've been out there financially, you know, but we're still well behind the men. So I think the men's side of things can be, you know, misleading. Like, you know, we're not flying around on private jets. We're, you know, in the economy class middle seat. Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, it's definitely grueling. You know, a lot of girls talk about it by October. Like a lot of us are just ready to kind of be at home, and we miss our families, and we miss that base. But then, you know, it's funny, then we all text in December in the middle of season saying like we're ready to get going and we're bored. So you know, it's our life. I don't know anything different. You know, and when it is different and I'm at home, or like during COVID when I had to stay home, it was hard. So I think it it just makes me appreciate that, I love to explore the world, travel all over the place, and play some great golf courses.
How much time do you spend on the road, or like how much time do you spend at home? Whichever question's easier to answer.
Yeah. It's not a lot. Typically a normal stretch would be, 5 weeks probably on the road and then home for a week. That would be kind of typical. In my career, the longest I've done is a 12-week stretch, which I will never do again. Because I think, it's so hard. Especially if you're not playing well, you want to play every week and you want to give yourself the opportunity to play well. But, by tournament 10 in a row, like, you might as well not even be there, because your body's tired, and then just mentally, I think you're drained. So it is really important to, take the week off and come home and relax, and obviously get some good work in too. But just, it's not something that I've, been very good at during my career, taking weeks off, but I've learned, it's taken me 8 years to learn that, it's okay to stick out, stay out of a tournament for a week and get better and rested and head back out again.
A nice piece of advice for, I'm sure, plenty of people that are watching this that aren't very good at taking breaks and are always go.
Yeah.
In terms of the financial side of things, I know you briefly mentioned it, and that you're responsible for yourself, and then obviously you have a team involved as well. So how much does a season on the LPGA tour typically cost? Like, it's far tougher than I think people realize.
Yeah. Obviously everything's in dollars, so we're talking anywhere between like 125,000 to 150,000 a year. And that would be, I wouldn't say I'm doing it super cheaply, and I wouldn't say I'm like going all out. That would be kind of middle ground. There are some girls out there that, stay in host housing where people open their homes up and they can stay for free, like they're members of clubs and stuff like that. So you can bring it down a little bit, but I still think even if you do it cheap, it's over $100,000. Because I think it's misleading, because sometimes, you can look at the website and you can see, career earnings or yearly earnings, and you think, oh, they're doing pretty well. And I would think that too, but, there is so much more that goes into it. And, we have coach, swing coach, short game coach, caddy obviously gets a percentage, everybody, physios, trainers, we're the boss of quite a few people. So it's definitely, it's hard. And I think, that's why it's so important for us to have sponsors. For the men, they can cover that easily. A lot of girls are looking to cover, expenses. And when you have sponsors, that just makes that so much easier and relieves a lot of the stress. So it's tough, but, it is going in the right direction. Like I said, 10 million last week for the purse was unbelievable. And, that's life-changing. Like, Mina finished second. And, she's had a good career, but not not like top 10 in the history, but she just, over $1 million for a second place finish. That's life-changing for her. So it's good to see that. And honestly, I think we deserve it. We're great players and people enjoy watching us. So hopefully it can just keep going from here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is something that's a long time coming. So it is great to see that, gradually there are changes being made. For you, like, what's it like being involved, as an Irish athlete? There's obviously a great excitement around Irish golf at the moment on both the women's and the men's side.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's funny because for so long people would ask me, like, how come there must be something in the water over there, that creates all these great Irish golfers, and 95% of the time they were referring to the men. And now, with Cliona getting her first win this year, and just seeing how far, we've come from basically, having 0 Irish golfers ever on the LPGA tour. Now we have a winner. I've been out there for 8 years, and hopefully I can get a win soon. But, it's just, I think it's a great testament to, there's a lot of people in Irish golf there, at both federations on both sides that have come so far. They've put so much time into it and effort, and it is paying off. And I think, even not that I don't know a lot of the Irish juniors right now, but I hear about them and I see them on, social media and their results and stuff. And it looks like we have, quite a few girls coming through that could be on tour soon. So, that's great to see. And it just makes me very proud.
Keep the Irish contingent growing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's there. We're coming.
So what does the rest of the season ahead look like for you? Will we see you in Galgorm Castle for the ISPS Honda World Invitational, or will we see you competing in the Irish Open in September?
So I will be at the ISPS Handa World Invitational at Galgorm. That is an LPGA event, so there'll be a lot of great players there, so it's going to be very exciting, and it has the mixed format, which is awesome, brings a different element to it. Unfortunately, the Irish Open is right in between things on the LPGA, so I'm still undecided on whether I'll be able to make it over for that, but you know, the ISPS is, I mean, it's an amazing event at Galgorm, and it's, you know, 20 minutes from where I grew up. So that's a very special event for me. I see people come out and watch that I haven't seen in years and support me. And it's, I mean, it's a dream come true to be able to play an event at home, because for so long, I never even thought that was going to be possible. So that's awesome.
Yeah, no, definitely being 20 minutes up the road, I'm sure is great. It's probably nice to call home and, you know, play pretty close. Thanks so much for joining us, Stephanie. We really appreciate you taking out the time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to episode 2 of the Her Sport Show. A quick reminder that you can tune in to this episode and every episode on our YouTube channels, social media channels, and every podcast platform. Keep involved in the conversation, and we'll see you next week.
The Her Sport Show, live every Wednesday on YouTube and every podcast app.